Hello and welcome to Council Conversations. It's my pleasure to share this opportunity to introduce you to the men and women who serve as our elected body and represent you, the residents of Greensboro. Join us as we take you outside the four walls of this council chamber and visit different locations throughout our great city that represent initiatives of particular interest to our city council. Again, welcome to Council Conversations. Today I am thrilled to visit the Gillespie Golf Course for the first time as we continue our council conversations today with at-large council member Mike Barber. Thank you, Councilman Barber, for joining me. It's always nice to sit down and talk with each of you and get some perspective on the things that are going on in the city of Greensboro. And thank you for this invitation.
Well, it's great to see you, and it's great for you to come over to Gillespie.
Thank you. And speaking of this facility, just recently you celebrated the 75th anniversary. In fact, that was my first week into the city of Greensboro. Tell me about the significance of this facility.
Well, the history is very significant. Gillespie, so many people know about the sit-ins in Greensboro, but I truly believe the history of Gillespie and the courage that was shown by African American golfers to play golf here at a non-segregated golf course back in the 50s gave those A&T students the courage to a year later or a couple years later go to Woolworths. Gillespie was an 18-hole golf course in the 1950s. George Simpkins and some other brave men came over and put their green fee down on a counter and said, "We're going to play." And they were arrested for trespassing. That case went all the way up to the Supreme Court of the United States. In 1959, the Supreme Court said they do play there and they will play there, and which was a real victory for everyone. Then 1 year later, February 1st, of course, 1960, was when the sit-ins at Woolworths occurred.
Okay, well that just speaks to the very rich history of Greensboro and how there are so many trailblazers here. And even now in present day times, the City Council tends to be trailblazing in many regards with respect to things that go on in Raleigh. And speaking of that, the state has taken positions on issues such as the body-worn cameras and HB2 that really kind of go against the grain of what the City of Greensboro the viewpoint is here. So how challenging is that as an elected official on the city level when you're dealing with overarching issues coming from the state?
Well, the first thing that I've learned, and we're never too old and we've never been in politics too long to learn something, and I certainly have over the last couple of years, we have to remove the emotion from some of these issues. The legislature has a challenging job. The city of Charlotte passed an ordinance that they probably didn't have the authority to pass. The legislature overreached a little bit, some would say a lot, and struck down that ordinance because municipalities not only make ordinances, but they exist at the pleasure of our legislature. And we have to always remember that. And then, of course, the national media, this entire issue has spun out of control. I'm not sure that Charlotte didn't pass an ordinance for an issue that didn't exist, and then without a doubt the legislature on that particular issue, particularly the portion about not bringing employment issues to state courts. It looked a bit pork barrel. But let me say this, most importantly, we have to work with the legislature. Resolutions that are passed that have no weight of the law or no meaning, all they do is aggravate our state government. And I think we need to stop that. And I think we need to continue dialogue with our legislative representatives, both Democrat and Republican, and let them know that we appreciate them, we appreciate the difficult job they have, that Greensboro is a significant city, that we help define the state of North Carolina, and we do want to work with them.
Excellent. And speaking of the city in general, you've been on the council for a while. The city is focused and very committed to economic development and growth and just making progress. Is there any particular project that you can point out that either has or will, in your opinion, propel the city to the next level?
Well, for me personally, and I could ramble on for a bit, and you just, give me a signal when you want me to stop, but the success of Greensboro, we struggled. We lost jobs at a greater rate than other communities back in the 80s and the 90s when the economy would dip. But, credit goes to the Bryan Foundation, Action Greensboro, and some other visionaries. They brought an organization in 99, 2000, right in that time period, and did an honest and true evaluation of where we stood. And Greensboro had some serious problems. And we knew that we needed to develop our downtown. We knew that we needed to educate our workforce, and we knew that we needed to create an attractive community that would certainly attract companies and jobs. Well, now we are 16 years later. And because of that report and because of the honesty of it, and because we were able to hear things that we didn't really want to hear, we've made a lot of changes. Today, as we sit here, first there was a baseball stadium. I was a county commissioner during that time, chairman of the Board of Commissioners, when we began building that baseball stadium. That was a big first step and a great anchor to downtown. Then we improved and enhanced our Coliseum facility, the Aquatic Center. I was thrilled to be a part of that. And that's busy 51 weeks out of a 52-week year. Absolutely amazing. We have benefactors in this community and investors. Marty Cotis is investing a great deal in redirecting resources to our city. Roy Carroll took an empty old Wachovia building, of course now Wells Fargo, and turned it into something beautiful. And he makes his home in downtown Greensboro. Center City Park, the generosity of the LeBowers, getting the right people with the right vision for downtown Greensboro. Zach Matheny being that person now, and doing great things and getting people rowing in the right direction, in the same direction. So there's just a lot happening, and success begets success. And you're seeing, because of those people cheerleading and investing their own money in our community, they're attracting others from other communities, and I think we have significant momentum now.
Wonderful, and those are great examples of public-private partnerships that work. And speaking of vision, as an at-large council member, what is your vision for the city?
Well, there are things that we do well that we should continue to do well. I'm a strong proponent of quality of life and athletics and parks and recreation. And, parks make a city beautiful. It protects green space, and it gives the youth some alternatives to those things that we don't want our youth to be doing. And we're very strong in parks and recreation. I want to continue that. Our housing stock. We are one of the few cities in the state of North Carolina in the southeast that will send property through the Minimum Housing Standards Commission and taking the strong step of tearing those properties down if they're not repaired. That reduces blight. It is, if you drive through other cities in North Carolina and the southeast and other southern states, it's not that difficult to find what one would define as a slum. And you can't find that in Greensboro. Now, certainly there are some dilapidated homes, but we're aware of it, we deal with it, and they're in transition. So I would say that one of the things we do extremely well would be to manage our housing stock. We're a loving and caring community. Sometimes it makes citizens that call me and makes me a little crazy. Sometimes we're incredibly loving, and that's expensive. But that really reflects the type of people that we have in Greensboro. Well, we try to take care of everyone, and that's a commitment. And although it's frustrating and it's expensive, I'm not sure I'd want to have it any other way.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you for taking this time out. You've given us a really great perspective of the city from its history to the present and to the future for that matter. And it's always a pleasure, and we look forward to another conversation down the road and talking to you about other important projects that you are a part of.
Well, thank you, and thank all that you do for Greensboro, and it's been my pleasure.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us for this edition of Council Conversations. Be sure to tune in for our next conversations with our other council members. And we appreciate you tuning in, and we'll see you next time.